Thank you for joining me again. This is a nice, cozy, rainy day read, which is nice because that's the weather here today, cozy and rainy. This is The Last Thing She Saw by Nina Laurin. So in 1979, 9-year-old Michelle Fortier, the child of a wealthy family, went missing without a trace from her home in small town Quebec. Years later, following her failure to launch a podcast about the mystery and start a new life in the city, Stephanie, the daughter of the town drunk, decides to return to the small town. She's out of money, and more interestingly, a flood has revealed the body of a child who may be the missing Michelle. But to find out the truth, Stephanie has to face her past, and the past the town would rather keep buried. So Nina Laurin has written about 5 or 6 books now, including the popular Girl Last Seen and The Starter Wife, which I've read and I quite liked. She writes female-led domestic thrillers with twisty, turny plots and intriguing family dynamics. They're fairly quick reads, the type of book that has the word, girl featured in the title a lot, or a woman, and it would work pretty well as a Netflix series. Just as a side note, did anyone else enjoy the Netflix series from 2022, The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window? It starred Kristen Bell. It's a really fun satire on sort of books of this genre and this kind of type of read. So little side recommendation for you there. So in this book, the plot gets going on the first few pages, which I really liked. And the main story is set in 2017 with Stephanie returning and starting to ask a few questions. And then it has interspersed chapters of her mother, Lauren, in 79 in the days leading up to the disappearance. And then there are also a few chapters that are sort of research or script that Stephanie wrote for the defunct podcast on Michelle. Without saying too much about what happens in the book, it does have some great themes or motifs of true crime podcasts, small towns and secrets, missing children, rumors of witchcraft, and conspiracy theories. So that's kind of the vibe. This book gets a little more gothic than Nina Laurin's usual writing, and it also reminded me a little of stories, maybe like V.C. Andrews a little bit in tone. I really liked the way the author showed the small town as dying slowly as the river that it's near floods and starts to take back the land due to climate change. And it seems like there's not a lot of work or employment available there. The character drives down the main street past empty houses, ruined buildings, which is very atmospheric. And the way that everyone watches what everyone else is doing and judges felt very claustrophobic. I think this was a really good aspect of the story. It's the same, but different. A fresh location, fresh themes, fresh ideas, but still satisfying what we want from a story like this, from these domestic thriller type books. The interesting lead, dark spaces, secrets and lies, sort of mystery at the heart of things, and that, plot twists and fast pace. I also like the way our lead character Stephanie was quite tough and cynical. She's a bit snarky and sarcastic. She has a bit of grit, but she's not completely a pessimist, and she's not blaming others for her life circumstances, which means that she's someone you can kind of root for, and she's not a downer to spend time with. So even as the book is set in a sort of depressed town and she has a dysfunctional family, it's not really a downer of a book to read. So in my mind, this could be very bleak, this story and this place and the setting and stuff, but it's sort of more dark and intriguing than anything. Can you hear my cat? Hi, Grimmy. Did you want to add something? No, you just want a snack. So as I was reading this, I was thinking how much this book is like the other side of small town life. So often in romance novels or things like classic era Hallmark movies, small towns are where you leave your door unlocked, you find belonging, and there's a sense of community, maybe solidarity. In those stories, families that are dysfunctional, they're offered sort of healing. And in this book, we kind of get the other side of the story. Sometimes small town life can be poverty and jealousy. It can be refusal to change or things never changing, malicious gossip, or being assigned a place in life that people won't let you leave or change. When Stephanie wants more than this life, there's a sense that she's bucking the natural order and not accepting her place is at the bottom. How dare she want something different? It's kind of like the anti-hallmark. And in my experience, this can be very true of the other side of small town life. It's not always pretty and kind, and it makes for a really great story setting for this kind of mystery. On the whole, I think this is perhaps the author's best book so far, and she shows a wonderful grasp of nuanced, complex character development and creating atmosphere and place. I really enjoyed this twist and refresh of the genre. I will say, though, the podcast thing in this book doesn't really make sense to me. Stephanie seems to have been given a job or hired as a podcaster based on a pitch for the podcast about missing girl Michelle. And then she's fired when the podcast wasn't a success. So podcasts are not radio. This was really odd. If she wanted to make the podcast, she would have researched it and made it and then maybe sold it to a producer perhaps, or more likely just put it out there herself. I don't think legally, if what the book calls a local media outlet, it's a bit sort of vague. I don't think if they hired her legally that they could just let her go. And surely after hiring her at like a living wage in Montreal, they would have to reassign her, I would think. It's just kind of weird. Most podcasters, even some of the really big ones, it's not their main job. It's not like a huge money maker. I guess maybe if you're really, really big, but off the top of my head, for true crime podcasts, even when they get kind of big and are doing tours, they still often have like a day job. So it just seems like a gross misunderstanding of the way podcasts work. And I guess that doesn't matter, but I think a lot of people that read this are going to be sort of going to know more about podcasts than the author. It just seems kind of odd. Also, there's a lot of true crime podcast bashing in this book, with it being stated that Stephanie is ghoulishly exploiting Michelle's story for her own ends. The book often refers to her wanting to be famous on the internet or go viral, which was very funny to me. That's not, it's not how podcasts work, really. I guess I get that people often feel this way about true crime stories. And I do think perhaps our lead character is sort of meant to be doing that here, like exploiting the story. But I think it's kind of interesting that true crime podcasts get tarred with this brush, like that they're making money off it. But that's what basic news reporting is. And there's so many, TV shows that cover the same content, and it can sometimes be used to solve cases. Like, I don't know, it just seemed like I understand that people would think that way, and that's fine. But it just seems sort of interesting that the book was sort of pushing that. Stephanie is actually meant to be a trained journalist, so it's kind of interesting. She's not, somebody off the street who's not doing their research. She's like trained in this. So I don't know. It was just kind of something that it kind of made me smile wryly to myself sometimes. The book has a couple of flaws and maybe a small plot hole here and there. The character's choice at the end about what they decide to do, I think that's maybe a little bit soft, but it's fine. I was entertained and interested the whole time. I read this book, I think, almost in one sitting. I think this would make a really good TV series, actually. Something along the lines of like Sharp Objects, something like that. It's satisfying in the way it hits the tropes that we want in a book like this. But I also liked that it was sort of playing with taking things in a slightly kind of gothic direction. And it just uses that small town Quebec setting and some fresh ideas really well. So, in my opinion, I mean, I like this author. I think this may be her best yet, in my opinion. And I hope that it presages more books in what could be called maybe Canadian Gothic, Montreal Gothic. I'm not sure, but I liked it. So, this one is for you if you've ever wished you could leave your small town life behind, or if you've lived in a small town for any amount of time. This is a domestic thriller, so if you're that way inclined, you probably will enjoy this one. For those who enjoy maybe some sort of gothic themes and ideas, you're going to like this one. And if you just kind of love that twisty, turny, sort of mysterious mystery read, yeah, I think this will satisfy you. I found it very entertaining. So that is The Last Thing She Saw by Nina Laurin. And thank you to HBG Canada because they sent me the copy of this book to review and share with you. And thank you for watching. You can check out some of my other videos. I also have another channel and socials, so you can find links below if you want more of that. And if you want to hang out again, remember to like and subscribe. And you can always leave a comment, let me know what you thought, or let me know what else you might want to see. Thank you.